I wish that at some point in Kenobi that Tom Cruise's Maverick from Top Gun would just show up and just blow everything up in that show, fly off into the sunset, and you get a close-up in the cockpit, and he says, "That's how you handle an aging action hero."
Renegade Online. All right, folks. Well, welcome back to another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, do leave a comment below the video before you head out today. And I've got a few guests here as well. And I hope you subscribe to Michelle, at least here from Force of Light Entertainment, great YouTube channel. Michelle, say hi to everybody. Tell everybody who you are.
Hey, everyone. Yes, I am. And thanks for having me back, by the way.
Glad to have you.
Oh, glad to be here. Yes, I am Michelle. I am one half of Force of Light Entertainment. My co-host, my sister's not with me tonight. But we review, do reactions to all things entertainment. Big Stranger Things fans and Star Wars. So that's why I'm here tonight.
And that's exactly why I wanted you here, because I know you've watched them both.
Yes.
So you don't have any bias one way or the other. You're a big Star Wars fan. You're a big Stranger Things fan. That's like I said. We talked earlier today, and it was funny because you texted me right around the same time that our other guest here texted me, and we started having the same conversation about Obi Wan Kenobi numbers, Stranger Things numbers reported by Nielsen. Welcome back, WDW Pro. How are you, buddy?
Well, it's wonderful to be with you, Valiant Renegade, and also to be joining Force of Light down below, and happy to be here. I will say that when you contacted me and to let me know that the Nielsen ratings had come out, which are drastically earlier than usual, I was not prepared for that. So I'm glad that you sent me a message, because we were running behind on recognizing that at that park place. So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, well, and exactly right. And I think that's a great place to start, because normally we don't get numbers this quickly on streaming shows. Nielsen always was famous for having their overnights, right? They would tell you how many people watched the Super Bowl last night, or how many people watched the Academy Awards, or how many people watched the latest episode of Batwoman. Hint, nobody. Just like everything else on the CW. So, I mean, that's what, but when it comes to streaming, that's a very different animal. And Nielsen is still getting their feet wet on this, although they are getting, I think, better and better and better every month. And usually those numbers, like for the whole week for streaming, the top 10 that Nielsen will actually make public, usually it has about a 3 to 4 week lag. So we were expecting to see Nielsen numbers for this opening week with Stranger Things and Obi-Wan like a month from now. But they specifically leaked the data. I say leaked. They decided to put it out there for these two shows specifically. No others, just these two, because obviously these were the big head-to-heads for the weekend. So we're going to talk about some of this today, because there's still some head-scratchers here. And I will preface this by saying the data collection on streaming is so all over the map that it is very difficult to really make heads or tails of what we're getting. What is helpful is when we get data directly from the horse's mouth, like we did Netflix a few days ago, one of the previous videos that we did, one of the previous articles that you did, Pro, over on thatparkplace.com, talking about Netflix came out and said 286 million global watch hours for Stranger Things Season 4 from Friday to Sunday. Disney is still mum on what their actual internal numbers are for Obi-Wan. However, we do have Nielsen that is now putting out some data, and that's what we're going to talk about to see if we can make some sense of this. So before we get into that, I haven't watched, just for everybody, and I've said this a few times, I'm going to say it again so everybody's clear. I have not watched Obi-Wan yet, and I don't have Disney Plus. I canceled my Disney Plus subscription 2 months ago. Y'all can probably figure out why. I have not watched any of Stranger Things Season 4 yet. The only reason I haven't is because Mrs. Renegade all of a sudden decided she was going to get into Stranger Things. She had never seen it. So she started watching from Season 1, the first episode, like a week ago. So I was waiting for her to get caught up, so we could kind of watch. Now she didn't wait for me because I was so busy. She's already blown through most of season 4, so I'm like, all right, shut up, don't tell me anything. But so that's kind of my thing. But Michelle, you've watched them both. You're big fans of both. You love Star Wars. I mean, your channel is very much about Star Wars most of the time. But y'all do some great trailer reactions, movie reviews, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. And you've seen both these shows now, so I want to get your thoughts as somebody who's a fan of both franchises. What you think about each show so far?
I think that, well, one, is a massive Stranger Things fan. I've been missing it for since 2019 when the last season came out. And I think its absence, it coming back right now, it is kind of exposed to me like how pathetic some of the content is out of Disney Plus compared to this masterpiece out of Netflix.
Amen.
And especially with Kenobi and Stranger Things, it's like the curtain was pulled back. Disney is laid bare and exposed of what happens when you have bad writing and bad character development compared to the Duffer Brothers, who are kind of like a George Lucas Spielberg-esque personality that actually really cares and loves what they do. And they write an amazing, just such a fun plot and character development. I mean, they're so good at character development. They had a prison guard in this season, and you're like, I hope he doesn't die. Like, you already really like this prison guard. Compare that to Star Wars, and you're struggling to like Obi Wan Kenobi, who's one of my favorite Jedi. So it just, to me, it's just, I think a lot of people are seeing, honestly, the difference of like, wow, that's really good. And that's kind of bad. So that's been my experience this last week.
That's a criticism that that's probably overwhelmingly the most common criticism that I keep hearing from Obi Wan Kenobi. And I mean, even the people that haven't watched Stranger Things, not making a comparison between the two. I was on with our buddies at Echo Base Network on Saturday night, probably the best Star Wars fan channel that's out there on YouTube. And we had this conversation. We went around the table, everybody talking about their thoughts on Obi-Wan. I was kind of there to talk about the numbers like we're talking about tonight. But all the criticisms I've seen, putting aside Disney's silly PR machine this last week on the show, basically,
that's generous.
Yeah, basically making a preemptive excuse pile, or in more common parlance, a cow pie, as to why they thought, it seemed like they were preempting what they thought was not going to be quite the numbers they were hoping for. This was not the Jedi that you're looking for. It did well. Don't get me wrong. It's not like the show was a bomb. I was expecting to see numbers that were sharply higher than we got, considering the titular character of this show, considering Hayden Christensen's return as Darth Vader. Now, there's still time will tell. I think the second week of Nielsen ratings, if we ever see that, if they put that out, which would be great since the third episode of Obi-Wan came out, but I have a feeling we're going to be waiting a little bit longer for that. That I think is really going to portend where we are. But your criticisms are echoed, I mean, everywhere that I've seen them. Pro, how about you? I know you've watched it. What would have been your initial impressions?
So the only thing that I haven't seen so far is the third episode of Kenobi. So I undertook the task.
You're in for a treat.
Oh, I've heard about that. But so I have heard that the third one's going to be a doozy. But I had undertaken the task of reviewing Stranger Things for that Park Place, and really that was a bad decision on my part, because what was that, 9 hours of content that I had to go through? I mean, it was literally like watching a movie back to back to back to back, etc. But here's what I would say about just piggybacking off the criticism. So in Stranger Things, you have not just a single storyline or a single narrative. You have, there is a multiplicity of storylines, character arcs, all these kinds of things that you assume are going to come together at the end. And I certainly am not saying that with skepticism. I do believe they'll bring them all together and it'll be excellent because everything so far has been excellent. One of those storylines, even just one of them, is better than what we're getting in Kenobi. And they're not juggling anything like this, okay? So if you were to compare the artistic merit of these two shows, it's like watching somebody on a unicycle juggle 7 bowling pins, right? And then there's somebody over there with one of those little paddles with the rubber ball, and they're bouncing it, but sometimes they miss. That's the difference in these two shows. Just the level of material that they are balancing in Stranger Things with the idea that it's going to come into some sort of unified art form versus Kenobi, which honestly, it's like you want to take on adult themes, but you want to write it with children. It's as if a 10-year-old wrote something trying to make it be adult-like, and it's difficult, right? So we've got another writer, Lauren Connor, who's handling a lot of the Kenobi stuff for the reviews for the website, and frankly, I'm happy. Like, I didn't watch this 3rd episode. What does that say? If you're finally bringing these 2 legacy characters together and you don't have this cultural moment. I mean, there's no cultural moment. People aren't out there talking right now nonstop about, oh my gosh, can you believe what happened in the last Kenobi? Oh my, what's going to happen? Nobody's doing that. We're talking about Stranger Things. We're talking about Top Gun Maverick. We're talking about the sociocultural stuff that surrounds the series. We're talking about Disney's marketing strategy, which isn't so much marketing the product as much as marketing why fans suck. You know, is this what we were doing after Empire? Because I don't think that's what we were doing. And so there are signs of cultural phenomenons, and there are signs of things which wish to aspire to be that and which are not.
I think you go ahead. I'm sorry, Michelle, please.
I was going to say, what going off what he was saying, you know what's so interesting is, okay, so I started with Kenobi because we were reviewing both Kenobi and Stranger Things, episode by episode. So I started with Kenobi because, I mean, it was 2 episodes, so you might as well get that done before you move on to the 7 episodes. And so I watched Kenobi first, and then I got into Stranger Things. So I see Tuesday, oh, there's another Kenobi episode coming Wednesday. One, I didn't even know that. I don't feel like they really let everyone know that well. And then secondly, it was like, okay, yeah, all right, whatever. Like I didn't even want to stop Stranger Things to watch Kenobi. Like I had no excitement. And that's sad because it's Obi Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. Like this should be.
Is it really though? Is it really
Exactly.
Obi Wan Kenobi?
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying this should be like epic. And it feels just so like, whatever. I guess I'll put it on and watch a few minutes. Like it does have any, I don't know, a lot of momentum. It doesn't feel behind it or anything that's exciting.
Well, I've got to know this. You've seen the 3rd episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get another baby Leia chase? Please tell me that I get one more chase scene. I need her to outrun adults with the speed of a low athleticism toddler. Please tell me it happens
All
one
they
more time.
needed in that scene, and I did see that scene. All they needed was 4 kids on colorful Vespas.
That's right. The Vespas should have shown up and picked her up. She could have Ubered back
Am I
on
wrong?
the Vespas.
God.
And then Disney could have cross-promoed with Luca. It's fantastic.
Well,
you
exactly
actually
Michelle,
don't get any more chase sequences with Leia, but you get a whole new can of worms to open.
Well, going off what Michelle said, going off with what you just said, because you brought up the other thing that I've heard most commonly about it, apart from the writing, more specifically, is that it seems like a lot of the same criticisms that we had for Book of Boba Fett, that this show was kind of, I hate to say, dumbed down for a more juvenile audience. I mean, like it was corny and can't like that chase scene. I'm like, there was just nothing watching that. Like there was absolutely no tension watching that. I mean, and I've seen a bunch of this. I have not watched it on Disney Plus, but I have seen a significant amount of the episodes because they all leak online. Sorry, that's just how it works. I've been reading plot synopses for this show for the last 2 months, all of which seem to be coming true episode by episode. I mean,
It's not going to be pretty if they all do.
that's exactly right. And what I'm seeing is that just this is a lot of the same criticisms that we had for Book of Boba Fett, where it really felt dumbed down. Like there was nothing intense about that show, and it seems like from what I've seen, there's nothing terribly intense about this show, apart from maybe, and I will never knock a performance by Ewan McGregor, but he's handed a script. Now, whether or not we believe that that is where we really think Obi-Wan would be at this point, especially after watching him just a freaking samurai Darth Maul in Rebels. When we finished him off, which my understanding is not that far detached from the time that we're in now, where he was still truly Obi-Wan. Like, I don't know how this fits into that. I don't really get it. I was expecting to see some sorrow, some anger, Obi-Wan dealing with things, maybe some nightmares from feeling like he failed, but on the outside still being Obi-Wan, and have that all resolved by the end of the first episode, where we know, this is still like the Luke Skywalker moment, end of Mando season 2, should have happened end of episode 1 here with Obi-Wan, because that's what would have drilled people into the show. And that's been one of the biggest criticisms that I've heard, again, as somebody who has not watched it. But I think that portends what we're about to jump into here with some of these numbers. Let me pull this up. So this is what came out today from The Hollywood Reporter and from Deadline. And well, I should say from Nielsen, obviously, which The Hollywood Reporter and Deadline magazine then picked up on. Although the Deadline article gave us this, which is on the screen. I'm pointing up my monitors up here, which is reflecting on StreamYard. So if you see me looking up, you know why. But what we have here, this is the actual breakdown. And this is Stranger Things and Obi-Wan. And they peeled out the first 2 episodes of each. Now, again, Netflix has released their official numbers. Disney has not. So, again, this is still Nielsen data. This is an approximation based on their sampling. They have then extrapolated out from there, which is what Nielsen has always done. Okay. Obi-Wan Kenobi season 1, episode 1. They are assuming at this point, based on the watch time that they collected, 6.2 million views on Friday, 3 million on Saturday, 1.9 million Sunday, for a total of 11.1 million views over the weekend. Stranger Things season 4, again, only the first episode, total of 12.7. Now, this data does not take into account people who watch either of these shows on their computers, on their iPhones, on their iPads, any kind of mobile device. This is strictly at home on TVs, or more specifically, I think, smart TVs.
So quick question about that, Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think would benefit from that more? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Because this is being limited to television, specifically smart TVs, which show gets the better deal out of the cards via that?
If I had to guess, and I will explain why I say this, and there's a lot that's going to go into what we talk about here, the advantage here would be theoretically to Obi-Wan. And the reason I say that is because of the disparity in the total watch time available. So you think about this. You go home, you can sit down in front of your television set and consume a 90 to 100 minute property, whether it's Obi-Wan, whether it's the Adam Project, the last Ryan Reynolds Netflix piece, which I bring that up for a reason. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Good comparative reference. You can sit down and consume that in one sitting. Stranger Things season 7 would be a 560-minute, roughly, consumption process. That's much more stretched out. It's much more likely, we know this from research, that people are not going to sit on the sofa for 9 hours straight unless you're me watching Lord of the Rings. And it's not even 9, it's like 12 hours if you watch the extended editions like I do. But even then, I might switch. I'm going from one room to another. But a lot of people that watch Stranger Things, they might start on their TV. They might pick it up on their phone for an episode or two when they're laying in bed, or on their iPad. There's more things to space out. Mm-hmm. And there's no definitive information on this, but I just want everybody to kind of think about their own natural everyday habits. I can tell you right now, like I will start watching a show at home on TV, and then okay, I'm 2 episodes in, I got 3 more episodes to go, or whatever the case is. I'm the next day at my office, if I'm sitting in front of the computer just doing paperwork all day, I've got my laptop open and I've got the other 3 episodes going there. Those are not being measured. So again, it's about the habits of your consumption process and how you ingest these shows, especially the ones that are binge dropped like Stranger Things, versus effectively the first 2 episodes of Obi Wan Kenobi amount to a movie, like a 90 to 100-minute movie, right? So I think the advantage there would be to Obi Wan Kenobi. The other part of the advantage to Obi Wan Kenobi, again, is also the runtime I just said, and instead of being it being spaced out between maybe multiple viewing formats, mobile versus television, computer versus television. The other thing with Obi Wan Kenobi is that, and I've seen a lot of people posting this. Again, I know this is anecdotal evidence, but it goes to show the mindset. And that is that there was probably a great deal more rewatchability, or at least I shouldn't say rewatchability, but a great deal more rewatching of Obi-Wan Kenobi because it was only 90 minutes. How many people would have binged the entirety of Stranger Things and then started over during that same weekend? Few, if any. How many people would have watched episode 1 or 2 of Stranger Things and then backtrack to watch those episodes a second time before continuing on to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, very few, if any.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people that talked. I mean, we talked about it, Echo Base. Oh yeah, we watched it twice. We watched it 3 times. We watched it this, and I'm like, how many people did that with the entire season of Stranger Things so far? Probably almost nobody. So again, this is, and my point is this, is that while these numbers are cute and they're great and they give us some insight into what's going on, they are by no means definitive. There are a lot of variables that are missing that we can at least make educated guesses at how they're stringing out. And it's kind of funny. I'm going to pull this up real quick as I say that, because this was actually line. This was in the Forbes article. And about a year ago when Loki was coming out. And one of the things that I love on here is that this line from Scott Mendelson, which, yeah, I know everybody's got problems with Scott Mendelson, but I like Scott Mendelson's data.
Everybody loves Scott.
Yeah. To the extent that streaming platforms' reluctance to share hard viewership numbers has turned educated guesstimates into glorified hobby cottage industries. Yes. Hi, we're on YouTube. That's what we're doing. This is exactly, he's totally right in that regard. And he's right because there's just not enough data out there to really measure this. But again, my impression, and we're going to go into this in a minute because I want to get y'all's thoughts on everything I just said, because that was long-winded, but it was a lot of, and this is the point, this is the problem, is that this stuff is so convoluted. It's difficult to really look at this and take it at face value. So, Michelle, any thoughts on any of that?
I just think, especially I think the main point that really clicked it with me of just yeah, that's such an advantage is it's like you said, the Star Wars fans or even little kids, they're going to watch those first couple episodes, those first 2 episodes over and over and over, because that's the only content they have of that. Where Stranger Things, I'm now on my second watch of it, but it took me a week to get around the first time.
Exactly.
So I didn't go back. So I didn't go back to episode 1 until a week later. These numbers are already out. So I think that alone was just such a huge advantage. For them to work and word things that are to their advantage. Because I think most of us know we're nah, Stranger Things had all the Twitter momentum. Obi wasn't even trending really that day. Stranger Things was. I think we all kind of know. It's just kind of the way they like to hide and word things.
There was a lot of upfront consumption on Obi-Wan, and there's going to be a lot more stretched out consumption on Stranger Things just for the mere fact of the watch time. And one of the things I want to just mention real quick, and then Pro, I want to get your thoughts just for everybody out there watching, so people understand the measurement periods with Nielsen begin basically at Monday, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they run until Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay, or maybe Pacific, but it's a full week right? So when you drop a show on Friday, you're only measuring those 72 hours. And I said this before we started. I think the interesting thing is going to be to see the second week for both of these shows, where we capture a full 7-day period from Monday 12 a.m. to the following Sunday, because not only will we have a full week measurement of Stranger Things, which is going to be the consumption versus the first 3 days should be much higher. And then Obi Wan Kenobi also in the middle of that week dropped its third episode. So I think that's where we're really going to see the rubber meet the road with these two shows. But Pro, go ahead and any additional thoughts on?
Well, there's a lot to prognosticate on as far as where this is all going to land out. So, this gets into sort of like a meteorology kind of thing, right? Where we're trying to predict something that's very complex, and we do not have the data set that we absolutely need. Now, that said, there's some reading between the lines that we can do to know what these streaming platforms are thinking. Mm-hmm. So let's start with Netflix. And let me cancel that. Let me go back even further than that. I wish that at some point in Kenobi that Tom Cruise's Maverick from Top Gun would just show up and just blow everything up in that show, fly off into the sunset, and you get a close-up in the cockpit, and he says, "That's how you handle an aging action hero." And just, boom, he's gone. And when we can just lose all this crap about middle-aged, washed-up Kenobi and yada, yada, yada. But anyway.
Yeah. Nobody was going to deconstruct Tom Cruise and Maverick in that movie. That was not going to happen. Yeah, we're not
came
going
back
down
as
that
if
road.
It was 1987. Anyway.
He's an unequivocal hero, and that's what Star Wars should have done.
Well, let's do this. So, is anybody here doubting that Top Gun is a major movie this year?
No.
Okay, good. Is anybody doubting at this point that Stranger Things Season 4 is a big-time cultural phenomenon right now?
No.
What about Kenobi? Anybody got some doubts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No one's talking about it outside of like big Star Wars fans.
All right, so let's talk about where we're getting some of that gut reaction, where we're going, you know what? Something doesn't feel right. Netflix, first thing they do, they come out with the numbers and they say, here's the big mark, objective, data driven, bang, here it is. And it's like they're daring Disney to come out with something. You know what Disney gives? Okay, let's count the caveats. It's going to be a new game show. Count the caveats. Disney says that Obi Wan Kenobi broke the global, weekend, record for original content, show, streaming. What they did, and they did this, and it was minutes watched.
On Disney
So what
Plus.
Disney, on Disney Plus, what they did is they set up a set of criteria by which they were guaranteed to break whatever record it was. So if you say that Obi Wan Kenobi broke a record for a weekend release, okay, well, you've not released on weekends, so yeah, good job, right? You just won in a group of one. Then they say that it's based on minutes watched. Okay, well, you've always released one episode. Now you release two, so good job. You won. You're in a category of one. All of this was set up by Disney through a marketing plan to ensure that no matter what, they would be able to make some sort of declaration of how awesome they were. The problem is Netflix called their bluff, put out the minutes, and Disney didn't. Now we're sitting here reading the tea leaves from Nielsen, but the fact remains one of these platforms is acting confident, the other is not. Okay, how does that affect the advertising that both of these are looking for in the future, right? Both of these companies have got to go out to advertisers for these advertising tiers they want to set up for their platforms. Okay, how are they going to pitch this if Obi Wan Kenobi is way behind Stranger Things and those sorts of questions begin to be asked? Those are my thoughts.
Not in minutes or hours watched, but in total views, because that's what
right.
Counts at the end of the day. Just like on YouTube, it's about the clicks, right? It's about because it's when you click on that YouTube video and you see that first 5-second skippable ad or that 30-second non-skippable ad. That's the one that counts. After that, yeah, you can string out the watch time, but if people don't stick around for it, it falls off. And that's just YouTubers out there know exactly what I'm talking about. People that actually look at that when they put their videos out, especially ones that have a mixture of long and short form videos. This is the same thing. So it has to boil down to views, and it has to boil down to hold. And that's been one of Disney Plus's biggest problems with these series is the hold. Like they'll get a lot of people run in up front to check out a show, and then we see that trail off. Usually you should see that watch time building, at least staying the same or building week to week. Because people should be going back and watching the last week's episode again. You factor some of that in and blah, blah, blah. That hasn't, I haven't seen a big push, but look at this, Pro. I mean, we got it up on the screen again. Obi Wan Kenobi. I want to pull this. Look at this. Obi Wan Kenobi, weekend total 592 million watch minutes. Okay. That's, I think the first week of Boba Fett was, and again, I want to be clear. That is just episode 1, folks. That is episode 1 of Obi Wan Kenobi.
Right, because the game that is being played here is to release 2 episodes, take both of their minutes, squish them together, and pretend that's equal to every other show that Disney Plus has ever launched that had 1 episode.
Right, and that's exactly what I projected 2 months ago on this channel.
So here's another thought that I've got too. So everybody's wondering, why is there not somewhere on a schedule a future Star Wars movie coming to the box offices? Well, I'm beginning to wonder if Disney is not looking at the situation and saying, you know what? We're a little hesitant to put that in the box office because then nobody is going to be guessing. Nobody is going to be reading the tea leaves. They're going to get absolute numbers. Okay, we all know that Top Gun is a major hit, and we don't have to guess. We don't have to depend on Nielsen because we know how much it made. Star Wars is a little bit scared right now. Lucasfilm is a little bit scared. Somebody there is a little bit scared because they're not putting this on the big screen where we can all judge it. They're hiding it behind this smoke screen of caveat after caveat and stacking the deck so that it absolutely has to break whatever record they need it to break. They don't want to put it out there.
Did not Kathleen Kennedy admit that much in the Variety article? Did she not?
Well, she admitted a lot of things.
Did she not say in that Variety article, because that was the one line in there I really keyed on, is that, and I'm paraphrasing, but not by much, is that they can put these kind of things on Disney Plus without the same level of scrutiny that they would get with the theatrical
I had forgotten about that. That is a great
You know
point.
the line I'm talking about, Pro, right?
Yes. That's where the business side of Kathleen Kennedy
And
slipped
again,
out.
I want to remind everybody as we look at this and you're thinking, okay, well, Stranger Things had 75 minutes in that first episode. Obi-Wan Kenobi had 53 minutes. Now, that is inclusive of credits. So let's go just apples for apples. You assume 50% more watch time. Okay, well, great. Well, then that means they're kind of on par. The problem is, and this is where the Nielsen viewership things fall off, is that they're not accounting. These are not unique views. Nielsen is not stipulating these as unique views. So again, I go back to what is more likely? Is it more likely that Stranger Things episode 1 was viewed multiple times with 560 total minutes of that season to watch versus Obi-Wan Kenobi's episode 1 being watched multiple times by the same viewer with only 90 minutes? I think it should be pretty obvious to everyone watching. So of course that doesn't take, I mean, what if 30% of the people watched that episode a second time? What if 20% did it? What if 50% did it? The point is, I'm not saying I don't know. We don't know. I'm not saying I do know how many people. We don't know. And that's the problem. But, again, watch time, great. But again, there's too many gray areas here, especially when we take into account everything else. Let's talk about this for a minute, because as a comparative reference, and I'm going to go back over here to this article here from Forbes, from Scott Mendelson. And again, this is from, I'm going to scroll up so everybody can see it. Nielsen's Luca and Loki dominate SVOD ratings. Now, this is from July 15th of 2021. Okay. So this captured the data from Luca and Loki. And Luca came out with 1.6 billion watch minutes on Disney Plus. What are we talking about with Obi Wan Kenobi? 1.1. Okay. So just put that in your brain for a minute. Encanto, about the same thing on its opening, came in. Encanto was clipping 1.6 billion watch minutes for like a month and a half every week, every single week. Again, a lot of repeat business. And that's my point, is that those aren't unique views necessarily. And that's what we can't tell with these kind of numbers.
Okay, so let's think about this for just 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So here's something to think about for all the audience out there. Encanto had already been in the theaters for like 3 weeks. Encanto, when it comes out on Disney Plus, you got to think that having been out in the theaters for that long and being a children's movie, there cannot be that much anticipation. I know that it did fantastic, but as far as this being a moment to gather around must-watch TV at home with your best buddies, with your pals, get a watch party ready to go, Encanto didn't have Star Wars Celebration around it. Encanto didn't have this giant marketing push, and it had been out for 3 weeks. And you're telling me that Encanto beat the opportunity to watch Kenobi versus Vader? People, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable.
That's exactly it.
Listen, if you imagine that you have a hydroelectric plant and you don't have enough water to turn the giant turbine, and you point out to people and say, there's not enough water to move this thing, we're making no electricity. And then somebody says, well, some water's coming through. It's not enough. You cannot support $100 million multi-series per year live action Star Wars if Encanto, that had been out at theaters for 3 weeks, throttles it. It's just not doable.
Yeah, and that's just it. And let me just, while I have this up, Loki's second week viewership, which would have been the inaugural episode of Loki, plus episode 2, which would have come out midweek on that Wednesday, 886 million minutes. And that's to kind of, we're starting to bring things into perspective here, and that's part of it. It's really and again, is Obi-Wan performing well? Yes, it is performing well relative to it's slightly ahead of the game of the Disney Plus average MCU show. It is not, however, I'll put it this way, and let me bring this up real quick because I want to get y'all's, some final thoughts on this kind of stuff. And that is this. This is an article that I've been citing. This comes from the Hollywood Reporter. This is from just a few months ago, I believe, back on, let me scroll up so everybody can see the reference point, to be clear for the data. March 31st of 2022, Star Wars versus Marvel, which Disney Plus shows are most viewed. This is from THR. Okay. And here we go. I want you to look back here, starting with The Mandalorian Season 1, way back when Disney Plus launched, okay? 5.42 billion watch minutes for that whole season, okay? The next closest thing we got was Loki, with 5.23 billion in 2021, the summer of last year. Now, we just showed you the Loki numbers during week 2, right? 865 million watch minutes, according to Nielsen. You want to know what the difference was between Loki 2021 and Mando 2019?
What?
The difference was that Mandalorian Season 1 in 2019 that achieved that number of watch minutes, that 5.42 billion, did it with around 15 to 25 million during the course of its run, Disney Plus subscribers in North America. Loki had almost 40.
Do you want to know what this chart says to me? It just says basically what we've been talking, what I mentioned. It's like people like good, well-written, good shows that develop characters. The Mandalorian is their one true success. Why? Because Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni did just that, and people like it. And the rest of it, it's like I feel like they think if they slap Marvel or Star Wars on it, people are just going to watch it. And this
No, wait
Marvel.
a minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. You're forgetting something really important. You guys, I can't believe you've both forgotten. Don't you remember that when The Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 were out there was a racist brigade against Carl Weathers? People were storming the gates against this man.
I forgot all about that. I mean,
don't you remember Lucasfilm had to train him?
Oh my God, yeah, the cancel Grief Karga thing. Everybody was like, we hated Apollo Creed and Rocky. I can't believe you put him in Star Wars. Oh,
can't believe you forgot that.
That was so terrible. Oh wait, that never happened.
Yeah, it just shows
exactly.
It just
Does
shows.
Everybody remember when that happened to Giancarlo Esposito in The Mandalorian playing Moff Gideon?
It happens
when everybody
every time.
came out and they said, "I cannot believe that they put this." I think he's Chilean, right? I think he's like Pedro Pascal. I think he's Chilean, or I can't remember where.
Straight out of Santiago and treated poorly. These Star Wars fans, the toxicity.
Everybody was complaining about Giancarlo, right? One of the greatest actors ever. Got him in to play such a badass villain on that show, and everybody complained because he was a POC. Everybody remembers that, right? Right? Everybody remembers that, right?
It's an established pattern. Oh, wait a minute. No, this just happened for. Oh, that's right. That's right. The last time it happened, let's see, when was that? Can anybody remember? Seems like. Oh, was it Rose Tico? Oh, wait a minute. See if we can identify the pattern. I bet you can.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But look, this is the point of this chart, is to show the stupidity of this. Disney Plus's subscribers, since Mandalorian season 1 came out, and when that show started, they had 10 million. Because I remember them pulling 10 million new subs in the first month, and it blew away Wall Street analysts. That's when Mando season 1 started. By the end of that quarter, I think they had around 2025. So I want you to imagine that. And they racked up 5.42 billion watch minutes in that. Why? Because at the end of that first episode, when those freaking eyes popped open in that bassinet and those ears perked up, people lost their stuff. Okay?
So did toy manufacturers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Toy manufacturers lost their stuff because they were so pissed off that they didn't have these things ready to go. Thank you, Kathy Kennedy, for failing on that one.
Big box store executives fell down and wept when they saw that thing.
But the point is, exactly. But the point is this. Disney Plus subscribers have been increasing. They are now double in the U.S., roughly, what they were at the end of Mando Season 1. And I want you to look at this chart hard and tell me where the growth has been. Apart from Mando Season 2, and you bet your butt that 4 billion of those watch minutes were rewatching Luke Skywalker show up at the end of that season over and over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, because that was the cultural moment that Pro was talking about earlier.
Yes.
And we all know it when they happen.
Oh, yeah, exactly. WandaVision trailed off. Remember, WandaVision picked up like 2 weeks after Mando. Look what that show did. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, down. I don't even want to go back into that. I want to forget I ever watched that show.
It was awful.
Loki was a big boon. They picked up more subs in the summer, and it was Loki, right? Everybody was like, everybody loves Tom Hiddleston. And then like high interest in the first 2 weeks, like probably 1.6 billion watch minutes were in those first couple of weeks with those first 2 episodes. And then look what happened with the last 4. That thing really tailed off, right? That should have been much higher. That should have been somewhere in the vicinity of about 7 billion watch minutes, but it kind of fell apart. Look at Hawkeye. Good God. And then Book of Boba Fett. I don't even want to go back to that show. No. So this is the issue here, is that the escalation that we should be getting, A, from the increase in Disney Plus subscribers does not appear to be materializing. And the escalation, B, that we should be getting from the fact that this is freaking Obi Wan Kenobi and Vader does not appear to be happening. I was expecting somewhere around at least that 1.5, 1.6, if not breaching well north of 2 billion watch minutes for this 90-minute episode, because guess what? That's about, I mean, 1.5 billion, 1.6 billion. I think the first weekend that Adam Project came out in the Nielsen numbers, that Friday through Sunday on Netflix, the most recent Ryan Reynolds Netflix film, I think broke 2 billion watch minutes.
Hey, another connection on that is Sean Levy produced the Adam Project, and he's a major producer in Stranger Things.
There you go.
Good writing, man. It does wonders.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of where we are. And again, I mean, everybody go check out That Park Place. Great article here, talking about everything we just did. Yeah, I think here's the bottom line for me, and I want to get y'all's final thoughts on this. I'm at the point now where I still don't feel like there's enough information on the table, because it's not just a Disney thing, and I want to make that abundantly clear. This is an industry thing, to where these metrics are very sketchy. The only reason that I'm giving far more deference to Stranger Things is because Netflix actually released their internal data. That's what's making the difference for me. That's what's putting me over the top. Not to mention all of the ancillary and anecdotal supporting evidence that we've been monitoring the last few weeks, with the trending, the amount of searches, the amount of discussion, things like this. We're all looking at this going, and I know the diehards out there that are watching the show that are enjoying it are great, but there doesn't seem to be as much, I guess for lack of better words, normie traffic that I'm seeing in terms of interest. Yeah, they might be watching it, but they're not talking about it. They're not talking about it like people are talking about Stranger Things. They're not talking about it like they're talking about Top Gun Maverick right now. I mean, you can look at Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Variety, all these major, the what I call the holy trinity of Hollywood publications, right? You go look on there. Go look on the last week and a half and find the number of articles that were dedicated to Top Gun versus Stranger Things versus Obi-Wan.
Absolutely.
Obi-Wan is a very distant third.
Well, I think Pro said it just a second ago. It kind of sums it up, at least my thoughts on it. He said, when a cultural moment happens, And it's like you feel that right now with Stranger Things 4 and Maverick, like 100%. Like, start with Maverick and then Stranger Things. And even I'm not on TikTok, but my niece told me right now on TikTok, it's Stranger Things. What'd you say?
Because you're not 13.
Yeah, that's why. That's exactly why. But she said that on TikTok, she said it's all Stranger Things and it's all Maverick. Like that's what's on, even for the younger crowd. Oh, I mean, Stranger Things makes sense for the younger crowd, but even Maverick, again, it's cultural. Where Obi-Wan, no one's talking about Obi-Wan outside of the diehard Star Wars fans. No one's going to randomly, no one's going to randomly come up to me at the office and say, "Did you see Obi-Wan?" No, but they will ask, "Did you watch the latest season of Stranger Things?" That's just kind of where it is.
I have heard that question. I'm not kidding. Probably 5-1, if not 10-1, over Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
and exactly. A lot of Star Wars people.
Yes,
and they're all asking.
I do too.
Stranger Things. Pro. Any final wit?
I'm into metaphors and symbolism tonight, so let's go back with another little painted picture for everybody. So as I've been listening, and I recalled what we were talking about in the beginning about how refreshing it was to go back to Stranger Things, and it still had it, right? And that it is something that we just don't find on Disney Plus. Here's what I think is happening, and then I'm going to make a contentious claim. What I think is happening is that Disney lives off of their legacy, and sometimes not even their own legacy, the legacy of other companies that they've acquired. And what they're doing is they are producing something that it's akin to if you remembered this fantastic restaurant from your childhood and you said, "I really want to go back. I remember exactly what to get. It's awesome. Come on, everybody come with me." And you go to the restaurant and you order the same thing that you have this fantastic memory of. Oh, it was great. And they bring you out the meal and they serve it to you sort of halfway done, and it's just lukewarm, and they didn't really care about it. They just served it sloppy, right? There's no care put into it. And you walk away and you're like, man, you know what, though? That was an off night. We'll go back. And you go back the next week and you order it, and it's still just, but it's enough, right? It's enough to make you go, it's almost there. We'll keep trying. And Stranger Things comes in. And by the way, that's why you're seeing that dwindling. Remember what we talked about? We've got the line of subscribers going up. We've got the engagement in the product going down. Okay, so Stranger Things comes in and says, hey, you remember that steak you had with us? We can still do that steak, baby. Post-pandemic steak is on the way. And it's fantastic. And they actually care about the steak. So here's the contentious claim. I think that the modern Disney Star Wars is dead. And I think that Kenobi killed it. Here's why I think that. We talked about the metaphor of the hydroelectric dam. And if you've got water coming through, great. But if it's not turning the turbine, it doesn't matter. I think Kenobi, I think a lot of Star Wars fans, first of all, are getting really frustrated. And I'm seeing that and I'm feeling that. People are messaging, like crazy on the website, messaging on Twitter. Star Wars fans are not used to this situation. The situation is that in the past, Star Wars was sometimes great to the point that it led the entire culture. And Star Wars fans loved it. Sometimes Star Wars was cringy. Sometimes it was painful to watch. But people still watched it, and they cared about it, and it was still something you could gather around the water cooler, or you could go and watch stuff on TikTok or wherever you go. Star Wars fans are not used to this situation where there's something big out there for Star Wars, and the society at large has responded with meh, and they don't know what to do with meh. And I think that is what will kill Star Wars more than anything. You look at the prequels. People at the time, I mean, just think about the Phantom Menace, right? People were really frustrated with those movies, but it didn't kill Star Wars. Because what will kill Star Wars is, and we're at that now. That's where we are. They got to stop serving lukewarm stuff. And so the modern Disney plan is dead. This is unsustainable, and they can't keep doing it.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between what we have now in general versus what we had with the prequels was, at the very least, a widely perceived disrespect of the property and the original characters. Again, whether Disney thinks that's what they did or not, whether that is what they did or not, doesn't matter. The perception, the wide perception, is a disrespect for that. And I think it'd be kind of hard to argue that, especially at this point, even if they didn't intend it. So I think this is going to be something interesting to watch. I think it's going to be something interesting to kind of keep a tone on. Again, I'm really interested to see these second week numbers. I'm interested to see if Obi Wan Kenobi is going to go through a second week and turn in the same 1.1 billion, because if it does, that's bad. If it only goes up a notch or two, that's probably still bad. I think this whole first week, especially with the third episode dropping in the midst of it, I need to see Obi Wan Kenobi push out. I mean, a 2 billion plus, 2 to 2.5 billion, because again, I'm looking at other 90 to 100 minute kind of properties out there, and that's throwing the third episode in, which boosts it well past 90 to 100 minutes of total cumulative time available to watch. But I'd be very curious, and I think this is the problem with the Nielsen ratings, the way they do it with watch minutes, which again, at this point is probably the only way they can do it. But they're going to have to come up with unique views. The problem is unique views is probably something only companies, the proprietary streaming services themselves, can actually divulge.
Yeah.
Disney Plus has to put that out. Netflix has to put that out. Paramount Plus, Peacock, HBO Max, which, by the way, Nielsen doesn't even track, in case you didn't know. Peacock, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, those are not monitored by Nielsen. So again, it skews things even more. Now, I know Netflix is probably still dominating, no matter what, just because of their subscriber size. But again, I look at this as this is Star Wars. This should be a big cultural moment. This should be a big interest. But I think the fact that it was not bigger than it was, seems to suggest that there has been a lot of damage done to the IP in recent years. I wonder how. That's kind of what you get. And we know what happened with Boba Fett. We talked, like on that chart, 4.4 billion minutes watched for Boba Fett. I think about 1.5 billion of that was just those 2 episodes. The other 5 might have represented the other
non-Boba Fett episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it was so heavily skewed to those 2 episodes. I have to go back and pull up the Nielsen reports from those weeks, but it was so
the book
heavily
of not
skewed.
Boba Fett.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's right.
But that is where we are, folks. Well, listen, I appreciate y'all both being here. I appreciate you joining us. And again, I want this show to be great. I'm not, I don't really do reviews, movies, TV shows. Occasionally I will if I really love something. Like I think the most review I did of Top Gun was, oh my God, this movie was awesome. You got to go see it like now. I saw it twice in 2 days. Y'all need to go out there. So, I mean, that's about the extent of my reviews. I just look at the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And, I'm looking at this like nothing was adding up going into this show. There is a lot of disparity here between Stranger Things and Obi-Wan. If you really stop, and I'm talking to you, everybody out there watching, if you really stop and think about everything I said, the disparity in watch time, yes. However, there's a lot more people that means that are watching the Obi Wan Kenobi episodes multiple times versus Stranger Things, and it's data that we don't have. I'm not saying definitively one way or the other, folks, making that clear. What I am saying is everything that we do know suggests one thing or the other, but at the end of the day, there's still not enough data. And without that data, the only thing that we can rely on are these kind of educated guesses, which show us that, no, indeed, Stranger Things is trouncing Obi Wan Kenobi at this point. But it's difficult unless you know how to look through the numbers and apply a little bit of simple reason and logic to get to that point. I hope it does better. I hope Star Wars does great in the future because I really want good Star Wars to come back. Like consistently good Star Wars. And I'm as frustrated as everybody else out there because I see, especially when I see movies like Top Gun, and I'm like, my God, where the hell has this been in Hollywood? Where the hell?
That's right.
It's like everybody's like, well, it's anti-woke. I'm like, no. It's just a movie. That's the point. It's not anti-woke. It's just a movie. Yeah. It's like it doesn't touch anything at all. They don't even name the enemy in this movie. It's not Russia.
I just want Tom Cruise to direct a Star Wars movie.
and star in it too, man.
You know what? It would be great.
Yeah,
that's right.
So much better than what we've gotten. Because he obviously does not want to have. He's like, I just want to make a good movie. But, we need to talk about these social issues. No, we're not doing No.
Tom Cruise
Movies,
in Massacre of the
action,
Sith.
Airplanes, cameras in the cockpits, actors in real planes. That's all we're doing. But we need to do shut up.
That's right.
That's it.
Get me a real TIE fighter.
Yep. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Michelle. Please make sure you guys check out Force of Light Entertainment. And WDW Pro, as always, please check out that Park Place. And I must say that is a very, very snazzy new logo that you have there, sir, from our friend Fat Steven Skull.
It is dapper, and I can only say that I'm very appreciative of, well, do I even call him such? Let's just say Stephen. So thank you very much to him. And Michelle, an honor to get to be on with you as well.
Yes, nice speaking with you too.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. And until next time, take care.